Hey, Econ kids. Well, your AP test is over, and because you didn't get the last section, if you are taking an econ class in college, especially a macro class, there's things in this unit that was not tested. So here's a little video to kind of go through a little bit about, hey, this could be on or should have been on the test, but because we had such a weird year, they decided to cut it. So the first thing that's in here is balance of payments. So as you look at these balance of payments, basically the United States has, we're not alone in the world here. So because we are participating in a global economy, we're going to pay other people and then other people are going to pay us too. So this balance of payments is going to show all of the different transactions that we have with these other countries. Your current account does not create a liability. So your current account is going to be that balance of payments of goods and services that are coming in and out, but it's your financial account that talks about sales of assets that create a liability. These other ones, net exports, trade balance, factor income transfers, those don't. So when you think about different types of assets, your current account is different than your financial account. If you want some more information, Mr. Clifford has a nice little video on that. You can click on that, check it out. But when you think about your currency in terms of appreciation or depreciation, if your currency appreciates, you're going to import more because your money is worth more. So when you look at other countries' goods, they seem relatively inexpensive to you because you're like, hey, my money is worth a lot. So then, of course, what happens? You are going to import more than you export, and the capital inflow is actually going to increase. Your net outflow is going to be negative because you're just paying for all sorts of goods, but it's because your currency is strong, right? If your currency depreciates, you export more than you import, and you end up with a trade surplus. So if you're exporting more than you import, of course, your capital outflow is going to increase and your net capital outflow is going to be positive. So when you think about some of these things, sometimes you hear the president say things like, China's depreciating its currency. Well, why might he be saying that, or why might China want to do that? Well, if your country depreciates its currency, you're going to export more goods. So when you think about global trade, one way to make your goods look relatively cheap is to make your currency worth not as much. And then, of course, your goods seem cheap to other people. So you're going to export more things and people are going to buy more of your stuff. So as you look at it, that's an interesting thing just to note as politics also plays a role. If you look at these different, like a question here, it says if consumers in Canada increase their demand for products that are manufactured in India, which of the following is going to occur? And if you look at the answer is D. Canada's capital inflow will increase because Canada now is going to import more than the exports. So the Indians are going to have more dollars, and those dollars then will inflow to Canadian assets. All the rest of those obviously are no. You could pause the video and look at those if you'd like. So when you look at this balance of payments account, you're going to see it doesn't, like, sometimes it's not totally perfect to matching up, but it's hard to think about like every good and that's being transferred back and forth. But when you look at the current account, it's those top three things. So sales of purchase of goods and services, factor income, and transfers. And then if you look at the bottom two, 4 and 5, that's your financial account. That's official asset purchases, private sales and purchases of assets. So your current account and if you add your current account and your financial account together, it should zero out. Or you can say your current account equals like negative your financial account. And why is that true? It's because the sources of the cash must equal the uses of the cash, right? So if you're making money and then spending money, like those two things need to be able to equal each other. You can't have money and then say like, well, you bought this. Well, where'd the money come from, right? It's got to equal out those two things. So current account plus financial account equals 0. And then if you model your financial account, net capital inflows, those are funds from international savings. They're available for investment spending. And so if you use that loanable funds market, right, and you think about how much money is coming in and out of a country, if you assume all funds are in, like loans and you just ignore any like exchange rates for right now, you're going to see that savings are going to flow toward wherever there's a higher percent of return. So if you look at the one on the left, the United States, their loanable funds market, their interest rate's pretty low. So what they're going to do is the United States is going to say, hey, I'm going to take my money and I would rather go invest it in Japan because Japan's interest rate is high. And if you're the Japanese, you're going to keep your money there. So what's going to happen? The supply of loanable funds in the United States is going to be less because people are taking their money out of the United States and those loanable funds are going to go over to Japan. Well, then when they go to Japan, what's going to happen is the Japanese loanable funds is going to increase because now there's going to be more supply of good, like money coming into Japan, so they're able to loan more out. So what this back and forth is going to have an effect of your interest rates in the United States are going to increase and the interest rates in Japan are going to decrease. Why is that happening? Well, it's happening simply because the people are going to always try to go where the interest rates are the best. So they're always searching constantly to try to find those interest rates that are high, and then they just move their money there. A couple other things: differences in economic growth rates, difference in savings rates might also have different determining for capital flows here. Capital is going to move in both directions. So when you look at the differences between people's investor incentives and financial specialization, and countries can be both creditors and debitors all at the same time because they're constantly buying stuff and then also they're selling stuff. So that's about to happen. Mod 42, the foreign exchange market. So now what happens in the foreign exchange market is we're going to talk about interest rates. So, or exchange rates, I mean. So as exchange rates happen, the foreign exchange market and the currency that you're going to use, you're always going to buy things, or people are going to buy things from you using your currency. So exchange rates are just simply the price the currency is exchanged for right now. So if for some reason a currency was to appreciate, it would become more valuable. And if it depreciates, then it becomes less valuable. So if you have an appreciated currency, that means your money can buy more goods because it's just worth more. So in an exchange rate, if the US dollar falls against the euro, that means the dollar is depreciating. It means US products are going to be relatively cheap for the Europeans. When they come over, they're like, oh, it only costs this much for property, or only costs this much for investment in this, or whatever it might be. It's going to seem relatively cheap. They're going to respond by acquiring more dollars in our foreign exchange market so they can buy more goods. So then, of course, what's going to happen? The quantity of dollars is going to be more demanded as the number of euros is going to be exchanged for dollars. And then as you start seeing that, the number of euros needed to buy a dollar is going to fall. So as you look at these equilibrium exchange rates, what is this called? This is called the Forex market. The Forex market follows the law of supply and demand. When a country's currency appreciates, that means its exports are going to fall and its imports are going to rise. When a country's currency depreciates, its exports rise and its imports fall. So demand for the dollar is going to slope downward, and if the price of a good or a dollar falls, it takes less euros to buy $1. U.S. goods are going to seem less expensive. Supply for the dollar is going to slope upward. If the price of a dollar rises, $1 buys more euros. So European goods will be less expensive and more dollars will be supplied to pay for these goods. Mr. Clifford has a good one on exchange rates. You can go watch that. You can also see shifts in this Forex market. Taste, for example, you like goods from some country, you're going to demand more of their currency so that you can go buy those things. Price level, inflation's high in your country. You want to buy things from another country because things are just too expensive here. As you look at income, that's another one. You have more money, demand more goods from the countries, and interest rates. Interest rates are high in another country. You're going to demand more of their currency and supply more of yours, take advantage of that higher interest rate, like we talked about in that loanable funds market. Here's a question about the French and a firm. What's going to happen? If it says, assume a French company buys computers from a United States firm. Draw side-by-side graphs of the dollars and the euro on the foreign exchange market. Demonstrate the effect of the transactions for both currencies. Well, in the United States, what do we see? We see people that are going to demand more euros here, or no, demand more dollars, I should say, demand more dollars. And what are they going to do? They are going to demand more dollars, and the euro, then people are going to supply more euros. So as I am demanding more dollars, because you get this French company buying computers in the United States, they're supplying the euros so that they can go buy these computers in the United States. So they supply more euros, they demand more dollars. When they demand those dollars, what happens? You're going to see the exchange rate go up, right? So in the United States. So you can see that like over here by E1, E2. The euro, because they have to supply more euros to transfer them over to dollars, they're going to end up supplying more. What's going to happen? The exchange is, or the equilibrium rate here is going to fall. So as that falls, so you can get more euros, then it's going to translate to having a higher equilibrium over there in terms of dollars. That's what's going to happen. It's going to take more euros per dollar and less dollars to get euros. There's a nice practice foreign exchange market in a packet that I would have given you. The ACDC leadership has a link there too. So then as you see these nominal exchange rates and the exchange rates that you can see on both, you're going to see those nominal exchange rates. That's actually what you see. The real exchange rate is going to be adjusted for that difference in aggregate price levels. And then your real exchange rate and the current account only responds to changes in the real exchange rate. The nominal exchange rate, they don't really care. They want to take into account that idea of inflation. So your real exchange rate is your Mexican pesos per dollar. Your example would be there is no difference in aggregate price level between the US and Mexico in a base year. So then they have their real exchange rate to give you how many pesos per dollar. And your example number 2 there, suppose your Mexican economy has suffered a 10% aggregate inflation. So the real exchange rate is going to end up being 11.4 pesos per dollar. So in real terms, even though the exchange rate hasn't changed, inflation in Mexico means each US dollar is going to buy fewer pesos than and thus fewer Mexican goods. There is something called the purchasing power parity. It basically means that the nominal exchange rate there, given a basket of goods, should cost the same in every country. And people have used things like the Big Mac because McDonald's is so everywhere. Like you can go to McDonald's in any country. If the Big Mac, whatever it is in terms of price, it should be the same price everywhere. So for example, if you go to a foreign country and a Big Mac is, let's say, 20 pesos, and then you go to America and the Big Mac is $4, well then you know that $4 should equal 20 pesos because those two things should have, you're buying the same item, right? A Big Mac is exactly the same. A Big Mac is a Big Mac. It's a Big Mac, doesn't matter where you buy it. So that's an interesting concept. People have done things like that and studied it. It's interesting to see.